Hi, I am Sophia. Welcome to True Payback, where story hits different. Hit subscribe. Let's dive in.
The call came while I was reviewing quarterly reports in my downtown Austin office. Dad's voice had that careful tone he used when delivering news he knew would hurt. Sophia, we need to talk about Grandpa's ranch. I set down my pen. The 847-acre Texas ranch had been in our family for 4 generations. Grandpa Rodriguez had built it from nothing. Cattle oil rights, the main house that had been featured in Texas Monthly. He died 6 months ago and the family had been circling ever since. What about it? Your mother and I have decided the ranch should go to Maria. He paused. She's worked so hard building her real estate development company. She understands property management, land value, all of it. She actually works hard, builds things. The implication hung in the air. Unlike you. I see, I said quietly. You understand, don't you? You've got your government job. The way he said it made it sound like I filed papers in a basement somewhere. But Maria, she's created something real. Rodriguez Properties LLC is doing major commercial developments across 3 states. She's a builder just like Grandpa was. When did you decide this? We're announcing it at Thanksgiving dinner. The whole family will be there. We thought it would be nice. A celebration of Maria's success and Grandpa's legacy continuing through her. I looked out my office window at the Austin skyline. Through the glass I could see the bronze plaque by my door. Sofia Rodriguez, Senior Vice President, Strategic Acquisitions. But my parents had never actually asked what I did. They'd stopped listening after government contractor. Does Maria know? I asked. Oh, she's thrilled. Already talking about development possibilities. She's thinking a luxury subdivision on the East Quarter, maybe a boutique hotel near the main house. Really maximize the property's potential, you know? Maximize. Like Grandpa's ranch was just another development opportunity. What about Grandpa's will? I asked carefully. Well, the will says the ranch goes to whichever grandchild demonstrates true stewardship of the Rodriguez legacy. Dad sounded pleased with himself. Your mother and I are the executors. We get to interpret that. And clearly, Maria's the one who's built something meaningful. I understand. I knew you'd be reasonable about this, Mija. See you Thursday. After he hung up, I sat very still. Then I opened my secure laptop and pulled up a file I hadn't looked at in 3 years. Confidential, irrevocable trust agreement dated November 3, 2021. Grantor Eduardo Rodriguez, trustee. Lone Star Trust and Estate Management beneficiary. Sofia Elena Rodriguez. Grandpa had called me to the ranch 2 years before he died. Just the 2 of us sitting on the porch at sunset. Your father thinks you push papers for the government, he'd said, pouring us both whiskey. I know. But I looked you up. Called in some favors. He'd smiled. Senior VP at a strategic acquisitions firm that handles 9-figure deals for private equity groups. You've personally structured $2.3 billion in commercial real estate transactions in the last 4 years. I'd stared at him. How did you? I'm old, Mija. Not stupid. He'd slid a folder across the table. I'm putting the ranch in an irrevocable trust. You're the sole beneficiary. When I die, it's yours. Period. Your father can't touch it, can't contest it, can't give it to Maria. Grandpa. Maria's a real estate developer, yes. But she cuts corners. I've seen her projects. Cheap materials, minimal investment, maximum profit. She'd subdivide my ranch into McMansions within a year. He'd shaken his head. You understand what this land means. You've never tried to leverage it or calculate its development value. You loved it for what it is. Does Dad know? No. And we're keeping it that way. I want to see what kind of man your father really is. Whether he'll do right by you without being forced to. His eyes had been sad. I suspect I already know the answer. Now looking at the trust documents, I felt that same sadness. Grandpa had been right. But there was something else in my files. Something I discovered 8 months ago during due diligence on a different deal. I pulled up the forensic accounting report and read through it again, my stomach tightening. Rodriguez Properties LE, confidential financial analysis. My firm had been approached about investing in a commercial development Maria was planning. Standard practice was thorough background checks on any company we considered. What the forensic accountants had found made my blood run cold. Maria's company looked successful from the outside. Impressive projects, big announcements, that gleaming office in Houston. But the books told a different story. Over the past 5 years, Rodriguez Properties LLC had systematically inflated property values, used substandard materials while charging premium prices, and left a trail of incomplete projects and angry investors. She was essentially running a shell game, using money from new investors to pay off old debts. And 3 years ago, she'd received a $7.1 million investment from an anonymous backer through a Cayman Islands LLC. That anonymous backer was me. It had happened before I knew what she was really doing. Maria had pitched me on a can't-miss development deal, and I'd agreed to invest through a blind trust to avoid family complications. I thought I was helping my sister build something legitimate. The forensic report showed exactly where that $7.1 million had gone, paying off previous investors to prevent lawsuits, covering up construction defects in her San Antonio project, and funding her lifestyle. The Mercedes, the River Oaks townhouse, the designer wardrobe she showed off on Instagram. My investment was essentially keeping her company alive. Without it, Rodriguez Properties LLC would collapse within 90 days. I'd been sitting on this information for months, unsure what to do. But now, knowing she and my parents planned to take Grandpa's ranch and turn it into another one of her corner-cutting developments, now I knew exactly what to do. Thanksgiving arrived cold and clear. The family gathered at my parents' house in San Antonio. Aunts, uncles, cousins, all of them drawn by the promise of drama. Everyone knew about the ranch announcement. I arrived exactly at noon, wearing jeans and a simple sweater. Maria was already holding court in the living room, wearing a cream designer suit that probably cost $3,000. Sophia. She air-kissed both my cheeks. So glad you could make it. I know this might be awkward, but I hope there are no hard feelings about the ranch. No hard feelings, I said quietly. I mean, you've got your little government job. But someone needs to actually do something meaningful with Grandpa's property. The development potential alone is worth $12 million. Can you imagine? I could imagine. I could imagine her cutting down the old oak trees Grandpa had planted, paving over the creek where we'd caught crawfish as kids, turning the main house into a clubhouse for her luxury subdivision. Have you drawn up plans? I asked. Oh, preliminary sketches. She pulled out her phone, showing me renderings. See? 65 luxury homes, each on 1-acre lots. Average sale price $850,000. I'm calling it Rodriguez Ranch Estates. Classy, right? And this, she swiped to another image, is the boutique hotel. 30 rooms, spa, restaurant. We'll market it as authentic Texas luxury. Nothing about it looked authentic. Everything looked like every other overdeveloped property in Texas. Generic, soulless, profitable. Ambitious, I said. That's the difference between us, Sophia. She lowered her voice conspiratorially. You're content with your little salary. I think bigger. Build bigger. Grandpa would have understood that. Before I could respond, Dad clinked his glass. Everyone, if I could have your attention. The room quieted. Mom stood beside him, beaming. Maria moved to join them, her smile triumphant. As you all know, we lost Dad 6 months ago, Dad began. It's been a difficult time. But today we're celebrating his legacy by announcing who will inherit the ranch. I stood in the back of the room, phone in my hand. Dad's will stipulated that the ranch would go to whichever grandchild demonstrated true stewardship of the Rodriguez legacy. After much consideration, Maria and I have decided. That person is Maria. Mom interrupted, hugging my sister. She's built an incredible real estate empire. She understands land, development, business. She's everything Dad hoped for in an heir. The family applauded. Maria wiped away what might have been a real tear. Speech, someone called out. Maria stepped forward. I'm so honored. Grandpa Rodriguez was a builder, a visionary. He turned nothing into something, just like I've done with Rodriguez Properties. I promised to honor his memory by developing this land into something that creates jobs, homes, opportunities. By this time next year, Rodriguez Ranch Estates will be the premier luxury community in Hill Country. More applause. Dad was nodding proudly. Now, Maria continued, I know this might be disappointing for some people. She glanced at me. But Sophia, I hope you understand. The ranch needs someone who actually builds things, creates value. Your government job is fine, but it's not exactly entrepreneurial, is it? The room went quiet, everyone looking at me. I smiled politely. No hard feelings, Maria. See. He turned back to the family. This is why I love my sister. She knows her limitations. She's not bitter about more successful people. My phone buzzed. I glanced down at the message from my investment manager. Withdrawal complete. $7.1 million transferred out of Rodriguez Properties LLC. Cayman entity dissolved. All documentation prepared for SEC filing. I looked up. Actually, Maria, since we're making announcements. She frowned. What? I should probably mention something. I pulled out my phone, opening an email. I need to send this message to my investment team. Do you mind? Sophia, we're in the middle of. I was already typing. To james.patterson@strategicacquisitions.com. Subject. Rodriguez Properties LE Capital Withdrawal. Jim. Please proceed with complete withdrawal of my $7.1 million investment in Rodriguez Properties LLC, effective immediately. Close the Cayman holding entity and prepare all documentation for regulatory disclosure. Best, Sophia. I hit send and looked up. Sorry, where were we? Maria was staring at her phone, which had started buzzing. Then ringing. Then buzzing again. What the hell? She looked at the screen, her face going pale. My CFO is calling. My lawyer. And, she looked at me. What did you just do? Withdrew my investment in your company, I said calmly. The $7.1 million that's been keeping Rodriguez Properties LLC afloat for the past 3 years. The room went completely silent. You. Maria's voice shook. You're the anonymous backer. Was. Past tense. Dad stepped forward. Sophia, what are you talking about? I pulled a folder from my bag. I'd brought it just in case. 3 years ago, Maria pitched me on a commercial development. I invested $7.1 million through a blind trust. I thought I was helping her build something legitimate. You were. Maria's voice was shrill. Rodriguez Properties is a successful. Rodriguez Properties is a house of cards. I opened the folder, pulling out the forensic accounting report. 8 months ago, my firm did due diligence on your company for a different potential investment. We discovered systematic fraud, inflated property values, substandard construction, money shuffling to hide losses. That's not, you can't. My $7.1 million wasn't building anything, Maria. It was covering up failures. Paying off angry investors. Funding your lifestyle. I looked at my parents. Without that capital, her company has about 90 days before complete collapse. Mom looked like she might faint. Sophia, that can't be true. It's all in here. I handed her the report. Forensic accounting, SEC filings, investor complaints. Rodriguez Properties LLC is $4.2 million in debt, has 3 ongoing lawsuits for construction defects, and just lost its primary capital source. Maria's phone was exploding with calls and messages. Her face had gone from pale to red. You vindictive bitch. You're doing this because of the ranch. No, I said quietly. I'm doing this because you were going to destroy Grandpa's legacy with another one of your failed developments. I built a successful company. You built a fraud. I looked at Dad. And you were going to give her the ranch as a reward. Dad's face had gone gray. How do we not know about your work? Your investments. You never asked. I shrugged. You decided I had a little government job and stopped paying attention. For the record, I'm Senior VP of Strategic Acquisitions at one of the largest private equity firms in Texas. I've personally structured over $2.3 billion in commercial real estate transactions. But you've never actually asked what I do. Sophia. Mom's voice was small. It's fine. I stopped trying to impress you years ago. I looked at Maria, whose phone had finally stopped ringing long enough for her to be staring at it in horror. Your CFO just resigned, didn't he? She nodded mutely. He saw the withdrawal. He knows what it means. I turned back to Dad. So, about the ranch. What about it? Dad's voice was barely a whisper. You can't give it to Maria. It's not yours to give. I pulled out another document. Grandpa put the ranch in an irrevocable trust 3 years ago. I'm the sole beneficiary. Has been mine legally since the day he died. I handed Dad the trust documents. He read through them, his hands shaking. He gave it to you? He said he wanted to see if you'd do right by me without being forced to. If you'd value me for who I actually am, not who you assumed I was. I felt the old sadness return. I guess we have our answer. The room was dead silent except for Maria's phone, which had started ringing again. That's probably your lawyer, I said to her. The SEC requires disclosure of major investor withdrawals within 48 hours. Once they see your actual books, there will be questions. Many questions. You're destroying my company. Maria shrieked. No. I'm just removing my money from your fraud. I looked at her steadily. You destroyed your own company by cutting corners, lying to investors and prioritizing profit over integrity. Grandpa built things that lasted. You built things that look good in promotional photos. Mom had started crying. Sophia, we didn't know. You didn't want to know. I wasn't angry anymore. Just tired. I've been trying to tell you about my work for years. Every time I started, you'd change the subject or make a comment about government bureaucracy. It was easier to believe I was unsuccessful. Dad was still reading the trust documents, looking older than I'd ever seen him. He didn't trust me to do the right thing. Can you blame him? I gestured at Maria. You were literally about to give his life's work to someone who would have destroyed it for a quick profit. Maria's phone rang again. This time she answered it, her voice cracking. Yes, I know. No, I don't have another investor lined up. I don't know how we're going to make payroll. She walked out of the room, still talking frantically. I looked at my parents. I'm not interested in your apologies or your guilt. But I want you to understand something. When Grandpa gave me that ranch, he wasn't just giving me property. He was giving me validation. He saw me. He believed in me. He trusted me with his legacy. And we didn't, Dad said quietly. No. You didn't. I picked up my bag. I'm going to the ranch now. I've got contractors coming Monday to start restoration work on the main house. Grandpa let some things slide in his last years. I'm going to fix them. Properly. The way he taught me. Sophia, please. Mom reached for me. I'll be in touch about Grandpa's other estate matters. But I think I'm going to skip the rest of Thanksgiving. I looked around the room at my extended family, all of them staring at me like they'd never seen me before. Enjoy your dinner. I was halfway to my car when Dad caught up with me. Wait. Please. I turned. He looked broken. Your grandfather was right about me, he said. I'm weak. I always favored Maria because she was flashy, confident. You were quiet, self-contained. I thought that meant you hadn't accomplished anything. I know. Can you forgive me? I considered the question honestly. Eventually, maybe. But not today. Today I'm just disappointed. What happens now? With Maria's company? That's up to the courts and the SEC. But if she's been doing what the forensic accountants found, she's looking at fraud charges, civil lawsuits, and bankruptcy. I paused. She built her entire image on that company. I imagine the collapse will be difficult. You could help her, Dad said quietly. You have the resources. No. My voice was firm. I gave her $7.1 million to build something real. She used it to prop up a fraud. I'm not throwing good money after bad, and I'm not enabling her anymore. She's your sister. She's a criminal who was planning to pave over our family's history for profit. I met his eyes. Would Grandpa have helped her? Dad looked away. I'll be at the ranch if you need me, I said. But right now I need to be somewhere I'm valued for who I actually am. The drive to the ranch took 2 hours. As I turned onto the familiar dirt road, passing under the iron gate with the Rodriguez brand, I felt something loosen in my chest. The house sat on a small rise, overlooking rolling hills that stretched to the horizon. Grandpa's cattle grazed in the distance. The old oak trees cast long shadows in the late afternoon sun. I parked and sat for a moment looking at it all. My phone buzzed. A text from my investment manager. Rodriguez Properties LLC just filed for emergency bankruptcy protection. Their lawyer is requesting a meeting with you. What should I tell them? I typed back. Refer them to our legal team. No settlements, no negotiations. Let the SEC investigation proceed. Another text came through, this one from my cousin Miguel. Holy shit, Sophia. We had no idea. I'm sorry we didn't see you. Then another from my Aunt Carmen. Your grandfather would be so proud. I didn't respond to either. I got out of my car and walked up to the porch, pulling out the key Grandpa's lawyer had given me 6 months ago. Inside, the house smelled like leather and old wood and history. Photos covered the walls. 4 generations of Rodriguez family building this ranch from nothing. I found the photo I was looking for. Grandpa and me, both about 15 years younger, standing in front of the main barn. His arm was around my shoulders. We were both grinning. "I saw her, Grandpa," I said quietly. "Just like you knew I would." My phone rang. Maria's number. I let it go to voicemail. Then Mom. Voicemail. Then Dad again. Voicemail. Finally, I turned off my phone and walked out to the porch. The sun was setting, painting the hills gold and orange and red. Tomorrow, I'd meet with contractors about restoring the main house. Next week, I'd review plans for sustainable ranching practices and conservation easements. I'd protect this land the way Grandpa had wanted, not as a development opportunity but as a legacy. But tonight, I just sat on the porch with a glass of Grandpa's whiskey and watched the sunset over land that was finally, legally, undeniably mine. Not because I'd fought for it. Not because I'd proven myself to my family. But because someone had seen me, really seen me, and trusted me with what mattered most. 3 days later, the news broke. Rodriguez Properties LLC files Chapter 11 bankruptcy. Founder under SEC investigation for investor fraud. My parents called 14 times that day alone. I didn't answer. The ranch didn't need their drama. It just needed someone who understood what mattered. Not how much something was worth, but what it was worth preserving. And I'd spent my entire career learning to tell the difference.